So I'm going to walk you through section 2.5 on transformations, problem number 70. And I've kind of drawn it up here. I've drawn f of x. And they asked me to do several different transformations. So the first one is f of x plus 3. So I'm going to take a look at our template. And I can see that that 3 there is a k, or a d, which means I'm going to move every point on this function up by 3. So this point right here, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. This point here, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. This point here, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. And this point here, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. I redraw the function, and you can see that I've shifted my entire function vertically by 3. This next one is asking me if f of x plus 2. So I'm going to go back here to my template, and I can see that the x plus 2 is inside my function. So that means it's an h, and the h is negative 2, the opposite of the sign inside the function parentheses. So I'm going to move everything on this graph to the left 2. I'll take this point, 1, 2. This point, next point over, 1, 2. Next point over, 1, 2. Next point over, 1, 2. Connect the points. And you can see that I've shifted my graph 2 points to the left. I've shifted it horizontally, my h. Next, I want to do negative f of x. Well, that negative sign is as if it was in front of the negative, in front of the a right here. It's outside the function. It's not inside the function. So I want to then reflect everything over the x-axis. The negative sign in front of the a means I want to reflect everything over the x-axis, and that's the transformation that I'm going to do first, because I like to work on transformations left to right. So it's outside the transformation, it's outside the function, it's going to affect the y values. So this point here, which is negative 4, negative 2, it affects a negative on the y value, which is negative 2, so it becomes negative 4, positive 2. And this point here becomes negative 2, positive 2, only affecting the y values. This point here becomes 2, negative 2, not affecting the x value, only the y. This point here becomes 4, positive 2. I connect the points. And you can see what I've done is I've taken my red original parent function there, and I flipped it over the x-axis. So my next one has a couple of things going on here. And it looks to me like I have an h inside the function and a k outside the function. So I need to transform this going horizontally and vertically. My h is negative 1. My k is negative 2. So I'm going to take this, and every point I'm going to move to the left 1 and down 2. So I'll take this point here, and I'm going to go to the left 1, down 2. This point here to the left 1, down 2. This point here to the left 1, down 2. This point here to the left 1, down 2. Whoops, I made a mistake. This point here, I moved too many over. Right? This moves the left 1, down 2. That's better. My graph now looks like that. I've just shifted everything on the graph to the left 1 and down 2. And remember, you can do this with any parent function. This one happens to be pretty easy because it's a bunch of points in straight lines. But if it was the graph of the cube root of x, you'd graph the parent function. You do the exact same thing on the points that you graphed and then connect it, knowing what your parent function looks like. This transformation is 1/2 f of x. The 1/2 is clearly outside the function. It is an a. It is not a b. A b would be inside the function. This is outside the function. Things inside the function, like your b's and h's, your b's and h's are inside the function, they affect the x values. The things that are outside your function, like the a's and k's, they affect your y values. So this is outside the function. It is only affecting my y value, and it's making my y value 1/2 of what it was on the parent function. So my y value of this point was -2. 1/2 of -2 is -1. My y value on this point was -2. 1/2 of -2 is -1. My y value of this point was 2. 1/2 of 2 is +1. And again, I'm back here. My y value of this point here is -2. It goes to -1. So my transformed graph, I'm just going to connect the points, looks like that. My A does a vertical stretch for compression. This is a vertical compression. I have squished the graph down closer to the x-axis. I made a compressed graph of this. My next transformation is f of -x. Now this negative sign, as you can see, is inside the function. So it's operating like a b. In fact, it is a b, and it's a b of -1. B's are inside the function. They affect the x values. They do not affect the y values, only the x values. So I'm going to make all of my x values now negative. So this point right here at -4, -2, my x value was -4. It now becomes +4. +4, -2. This one right here, which was -2, -2, becomes +2, -2. My y value doesn't change, but my x value flips. This was here 2, 2. My y value is going to stay at 2, but my x value is going to change to -2. That one goes over there. And then my final one over here on the right was 4, -2. It's going to turn into -4, -2. So actually, my two endpoints are actually the same. So my graph now looks like this. I have flipped my red graph over the y-axis. So this negative sign here inside the function flips it over the y-axis. The negative sign outside the function flips it over the x-axis. This transformation, f of 2x, involves a b, because the 2 is inside the function. And the 2 is going to affect, because it's inside the function, it's going to affect the x values, not the y values. But, and this is the tricky one, this affects the x values by a factor of 1 over b. So since my b is 2, 1 over 2 is what's going to happen to my x values. So wherever I have a point, I'm going to take the x value and I'm going to multiply it by 1/2. So this point here, which was a -4, -2, now moves in here to -2, -2. The point that was -2, -2 moves in to -2 to -1, -2. My y values are staying the same. My x values are being compressed by 1 over b. 1/2. This value here that was 2, 2, compress the x value by 1/2. It becomes 1, 2. And this value here, which was 4, -2, compress the x value by 1/2, becomes 2, -2. So this graph now looks like this. I have squished it horizontally. I've squished it in horizontally.